Hey folks, Jorak here. I just wanted to share a few thoughts on how I feel the state of Prot Warrior currently is in World of Warcraft. A couple weeks ago, we got AOTC, which is basically our end goal for raiding as a guild, and the first 10 bosses, I used my Blood DK to go through that raid. Sepulchre are the first ones. I mean, I like Blood DK. I like the independence. I like, death striking my way back into health and the legendary that we have with dancing rune weapon basically being able to keep it 100% uptime if you've got uptime on the boss. It's fun, all right, and the numbers are there. I know that it makes sense. They're the OP meta tank for a reason. But the biggest drawback I had to DK was their mobility. For those curious, yes, I did talent into Wraithwalk, and yes, I did use the conduit to give my deaths advance like a little mini speed boost. But what I found in my guild and for my raid group was on the jailer phase 2, where the tanks have to run the big blue circles over to the pillars and this, that, and the other. We struggled with DPS on the boss, and the best way to alleviate that would be to keep the boss rather stationary, which put all the the management of running out to those pillars on the tanks, which is not a big deal. That's honestly a very fair share of the workload because the DPS has to dodge some mind controls and kill ads and stuff like that. I'm not complaining about that, but I am saying that if it weren't for my other tank in our guild, Solar Boy, great dude, being a Guardian Druid and having roar and sprints and other mobilities that he can use, if it wasn't for that, we would not have done that fight. And so I did the first 100 or so pulls on the jailer, just learning the fight as my DK, like trying to time my cooldowns. And it's just simply put, like just the RNG of where some of those pillars get spawned versus where we were keeping the boss. I was just not going to get to them. At the same time, I've been gearing my Prot Warrior and kind of like preparing to do some videos and things on him. So I went in there on my Prot Warrior because talenting into heroic leap, it was night and day difference. Like the survivability between Prot Warrior and Blood DK is not night and day difference per se. It's not like a huge. Obviously, the Blood DK lives and the Prot Warrior dies. In fact, I think when we look at total damage mitigator, like the Warrior is the best tank at that, and the Jailer's melee swings tend to hit kind of hard. So like keeping up shield block for that was actually really good. But phase 2 rolling around and me being able to actually, it did not matter where the pillar was between like leap and high mountain Tauren, so I can get that little charge thing going on. Any pillar on that platform, I was able to get it, no problem. And that allowed us to keep the boss stationary, and it allowed our DPS to go into it. I think the kill pull, we had the jailer at about 37 or 38% going into phase 3, which all the guides say you should probably be sub 40, so we were pretty happy about that. And so that kind of got me thinking, like my DK, we started progging this week on some of the people who missed the kill last week, and I'm really trying to get that kill on my DK just because now he's 10 out of 11, and my warrior was 1 out of 11. That one being jailer. Um, it started making me think about the perceptions of Prot Warrior from the community. I was watching a video earlier from Max from Limit, and he called it actual trash. Said that while they were doing the Race for World First and progressing through this raid, that there is no consideration whatsoever given to a Prot Warrior because they don't bring anything unique to the table. And I think that's a fairly harsh criticism, but I also see where he's coming from. And the numbers don't lie. Like you can look on subcreation.net, which I know that they rank their tiers by like DPS, and that's just not a great tanking metric. But it does kind of show you the representation a little bit within the community as far as what these tanks are doing and where they're at. Um, and consistently, Prot Warrior is the lowest tank every single week. And so I've been looking at both the Guardian Druid talent tree leaks for 10.0, not really leaks, Blizzard put them out on Wowhead and Blood DK, and I was just kind of thinking, like, what do I think would I would like to see for the Prot Warrior going forward? And this first thing I'll say it is damage. I don't think this is specific Prot Warrior specific as much as like tanks as a whole. But some tanks are just like DPS monsters. Like I think a Venthyr Druid, like legitimately in like Mythic Plus and even like on some single target boss fights, like being a competitive DPS kind of reminds me of like some of the shenanigans with like Prot Warriors and like holy not Prot Prot Paladins and Holy Paladins popping Ashen Hollow during Nathria. Like just out of nowhere, you've got this class just shooting to the top of the damage meters. So, and even like DK, you pop your Blood Boil or pop Dancing Rune Weapon, you pop Shackle the Unworthy, and then you spam Heart Strike until like you just don't have any runes left, and you look at yourself on like a big pack, like you know, hitting 30, 40, maybe even higher, 30, 40k DPS. Warriors, I think when I run Kyrian, I can drop Spear and I can drop the Ravager, and I'll get up to about 25k, once every minute or so, which is not, it's fine for packs. Then you got like Demon Hunters who don't really, they have great snap aggro, and then after that, it's pretty meh. Like, I would say they can consistently get into the 20s as far as damage goes. And then monks are just kind of also DPS monsters this time around. All that to say, I think tank damage should definitely be brought in line with each other. Like, I understand there's class identity and that people want, certain things from a class. Like, everyone wants something in their class to stand out and be unique. And I appreciate that. I really and truly do. The problem becomes when, in the tank role specifically, because you can only bring one to Mythic Plus, you're only ever going to see early on in the tier the highest DPS tanks being the ones pushing the highest keys early. I will caveat Demon Hunter, typically the first few weeks of the season, has a pretty high representation just because they can jump in, establish good snap thread aggro, and then they can kite. Like, that's their forte is kiting. But mid season, like once everyone's got their gear and everyone's like pumping, we've got our tier, we're at a double Lego and all that kind of stuff going on. Who's at the top of the charts? It's the highest DPS tanks. And why is that? Because, well, DPS influences the speed and the keys that you can get. Like, you can do the same key faster, or you can do a higher key. Just throw more DPS at it. It's kind of the same reason that like Holy Priest is the preferred M plus healer right now. It's not that in our play group we have a Resto Shaman who Carrion who he drops his Vesper Totem and his Earth Ellie and all that kind of stuff, and he throws some decent DPS on packs. But Holy Priest can throw a PI on a Warlock, and then the gain from having a priest with their lower DPS that they individually bring, and then being able to PI a high damage target versus just like a high damage contained within itself like Resto Shaman. It's not a question of could Resto Shaman do this content. It's you can do the same content with less effort if you just simply have more DPS. And that's why I think as the tanks, we all need to kind of be brought in line. Like I don't want to take away any tanks like you know, mobility, utility. I think Warriors having Battle Shout and then Rallying Cry is pretty fair, but it's kind of lackluster compared to like Druid's utility. Even Paladins have like off healing and they can do reses and things like that, and divine intervention. So I would like to see the damage of all the tanks like brought into line. And if you want to have like plus or minus 10%, like, hey, all the tanks are within 10% of each other on AoE and within 10% of each other on single target, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I understand they're still going to be the best, and that's what people are going to do. But I think regulating that damage a little bit so that you don't just pick the tank with the highest DPS and build the comp around it, that would be better for the health of the game. So, what do I want for Prot Warriors? Number one, damage. Number two, let's talk about Ignore Pain and how much of a joke it is to hit that button. Um, Primarily, within the Prot Warrior community, there's absolutely nobody who hits Ignore Pain to save themselves from an attack. It's all just 100%. I'm using this to, not rage cap when I hit Necro Banner. Like I'm hitting Revenge, I'm hitting Shield Block. I'm not wanting to cap rage. That's why I hit Ignore Pain. That needs to be addressed. We need to have a viable second active mitigation ability. Like it could just we could keep it Ignore Pain, just make the numbers make sense. Like it's such a joke, or maybe even make it magic damage specifically so that it doesn't detract from our shield block uptime. So I think that's it. I want damage and I want Ignore Pain. And to that point though, like Prot Warriors are the king of physical damage mitigation. And that's primarily due to their reprisal legendary that, whenever you charge or intervene, you get a few seconds of shield block on top of your two charges. You can have shield block up for that 100% of a pack, and that's great. That's why we take so little damage. And I guess looking at the Blood DK tree and the Guardian Druid tree, I see that Druids are getting to keep Invoke going into 10.0. Blood DKs are going to keep A-Bomb Limb going into it. This is my plea, Blizzard, please include a reprisal-like talent in the 10.0 trees. If you want warriors to be viable, like Spear is cool and all. Like I like Spear, I like Necro Banner. Heck, I even like the visual of Ancient Aftershock. But of all the things that we need to keep going into 10.0 to make us still viable, it would definitely be a reprisal-like effect. So, curious if anybody else has experience on Prot Warrior, what their thoughts are. Feel free to like, subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to put my thoughts out there, and I'll catch you guys later.